Hey guys, how are we doing? Aaron back again for second week reacting to the chart music. So, last week we had 5 tracks. Some good stuff, some bad stuff, some indifferent stuff. This week we're going to do something again slightly different. I'm going to introduce a tier system. So, the way it's going to work, obviously I'll react to them like I normally would, and then grade them judging by 4 categories. So, 4, so top to bottom, so best to worst. Straight in the playlist is your best one. Re-listenable is your second one. Indifferent is your third one, and not for me the fourth. So obviously that goes from best down to worst. And yeah, we'll do it week by week. I'll put a graphic up on the screen after each song of where I've put the song. And you know, if you agree, great. If you disagree, let me know. You know, it'd be good to get some sort of debate going in the thing. So the first track this week, apologies, I've just got it all on my notes down here, is a track by KSI, who is obviously the I think he's still the biggest UK YouTuber in the UK. As far as I know, I'm not really, I've certainly never heard any of his music stuff. I'm not really a fan of his YouTube-wise. I can't say I've ever really watched him. Don't really know much about him. The song is called Houdini. It's by KSI, obviously, featuring Swarms and Tion Wayne. Not heard of any of those two. Kind of expecting a rap type thing again. But again, it could be something completely different because it's KSI. Never heard any of his music, so we'll go into it with an open mind. We'll take a listen. Straight away, it's pretty much exactly what I expected. Similar to the 2 tracks last week. I can't remember the names. Yeah, very similar. This one, I think this was number 6 in the chart, so it's gone straight in at number 6. With it being KSI, I would expect it to go higher than that. Obviously, you know, biggest UK YouTuber. He's got a huge following, so I would assume it would go bigger. To carry on listening. I think the thing that sets this one apart from some of the other tracks I've heard in a similar vein, it's got a different rhythm to it than the 2 last week, definitely. It's a lot of the other stuff I've heard. It is more straight up rap than the other 2. It's very simple. There's not a lot to it necessarily. I'm only about 40 seconds in. It's not doing anything for me. I don't think it'll come as a great surprise. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's a little bit more like sort of 90s hip hop esque. It's not as modern day as you would expect it to be, you know, as some of the other songs that have been on these lists have been. Like I said, I know nothing about any of the artists necessarily. It's exactly what I expected from KSI. But yeah, it's like I say, it's slightly more dated, not dated, but you know what I mean. You know, it reminds me more of 90s hip hop than it does some of the stuff you'd expect to see in the charts now. Now, I don't know who it is that is doing that song part, but that's obviously the hook. You know, obviously going into the chorus. It's a catchy hook. I'll give them that. You know, it's one I can already hear playing in the clubs. You know, it is that catchy hook. It's typical 2020 in that sense. That's obviously the more modern side of the track. I said before, it was, you know, kind of based loosely around 90s hip hop. It makes it more modern. You've got that hook. Very similar. I can't think of any songs off the top of my head that use that kind of line, but it is very similar. It's exactly what you would expect from this type of era. I suppose this second verse now, I think it's the other one of whoever it was rapping in the first verse. That's much more for me. I could struggle to understand what the guy in the first verse was saying. You know, it was kind of not slurred, but, you know, a real low register and quite quick. You know, you couldn't really get what you're saying unless I suppose you listen to that all the time. This guy reminds me a lot more of, you know, sort of like 2010, 2011 type rappers. You know, he's got that bit of Tinchy Strider about him, tiny temper about him. It's a little bit slower. It's more reeled back. You can get what the guy's saying a little bit more. So that's much more for me. I much prefer the rap on the second verse than the first verse. I can't get away from the 90s hip hop thing, you know, with the, I don't know what you would call it, but like the dun, dun, dun. It's always the same note and, you know, kind of emphasises the beat almost, but it's just typical 90s hip hop. I suppose once you've heard the chorus, you know, sort of 1 or 2 times and you've heard the verses, you know where they're going to go. There's not a lot more to say about this one, really. It's just very middle of the road. It'll definitely please people that it's meant to. Obviously, it's not going to convert people like me, you know, that don't listen to music like this. But for people that are into this type of music, you know I've got friends that listen to this type of stuff that I know this song will appeal to them because it is exactly that type of thing, you know, and it is different enough, like I say, with the 90s thing to be able to appeal to, you know, a slightly wider range of people, you know. So, yeah, you know, it won't come as a surprise to anybody. It's not for me. But in regards to, you know, the 2 last week, I'd definitely be able to listen to this one again over those ones. With that being said, I'm going to put that in the indifferent category, so I'll put a graphic on the screen now. Indifferent, you know, not for me. I think it would be unfair to put it in the bottom category because, you know, it doesn't do anything massively to offend me. You know, I don't think it's dreadful by any stretch. It's just not one that I'm going to go back and listen to. But yeah, you know, good for KSI, you know, going out of his comfort zone, doing something he's not used to doing. You know, he's quite a bit of a pioneer for things like that. You know, obviously he's done his YouTube, he's done his boxing, he's done this now. So yeah, good for him. So that one's going to be indifferent. If you agree, let me know. If you don't, drop it in the comments. So we will move on to the next song. Okay, so the second song this week is currently at number 11, come straight in at number 11, and it is by Travis Scott. I think it's Travis Scott, or it's The Scots, I think it's called, and let's just find it. The song is called The Scots. It's by, yeah, Travis Scott, Kid Cudi, and The Scots. So I'm assuming that's some sort of family thing. I've heard of Travis Scott, can't say as I've ever listened to any of his music. I think I kind of know what he's about. It's a similar kind of ilk again to the last thing. But I could be completely wrong. That's just what I know from it. So we'll take a listen, open-minded again, and we'll see what we think. I quite like that. I don't know how you describe that. It's almost like a counter rhythm where you've got the dun 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 dun. It's I like that. It's actually quite cool. Reminds me a little bit of I can't remember his name. It's Charlie somebody or other that does the Fire in the Booth for BBC Radio 5 or something like that. The beat is something straight out of that. You know, I'm sure you've all seen a Fire in the Booth. I know Bugsy Malone's done famous ones. The ones I can think of off the top of my head anyway. It's the beat's very similar to that, and you know, I think it's been inspired by that. Again, this is very similar to the two from last week. It's got that auto-tune on it that the last song didn't have. I think that's probably why I like the last song more than those two last week. It's got that auto-tune to it. You know, it's got that laid-back feel again. You know, the sort of, you know, it's, yeah. I mean, like, it's songs like this, you know, I'm like halfway through the song, I've had very little to say about it. I just struggle to see what people see in it because it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. You know, you've got some songs like this that, you know, will have a chorus that's definitive, unless I haven't got to it yet, but by halfway through the song I would expect it. You know, I would expect it to have gone somewhere. It's just very flatline. It's, you know, just so middle of the road and so the same. To me, I just don't see the appeal in it. You know, I know that's a, you know, it's a personal opinion. You're entitled to like whatever you like. But in the same breath, I think I'm entitled to say that it's just, I just think it's shit. Just very samey, very, just really quite dull. I don't get the I don't know what you'd even call them. It's like the, yeah, ha, in the background. I don't get that at all. I think it's just a waste of time. I'm on the second verse now, and, you know, I'm already waiting for the song to be finished. It's really not for me. I mean, like, I struggle to get involved with a rapper that's rapping about making a panini. To me, I just, whatever. I mean, like, if you like paninis that much, go and make one, but I wouldn't put that in a song. Maybe I'm missing the buck on it completely, but I don't get, yeah, there's people out there that listen to this and think it's, like, the next big thing, and straight over my head. I mean, I suppose it's a little bit eye-opening for me, you know, having done this, and this is now the second week, and having this be the fourth song like this. You know, obviously the KSI one's slightly different, but this, say the third song exactly like this, and, you know, 5 last week, and this is the second for this week. So of the 7 I've done so far, this is the 4th that's similar. And, you know, to me, I always associated this type of music with, like, underground, and, you know, it was never going to be anything that sort of rose up and got to the charts. So in that sense, it's a good thing. You know, you've got different artists coming through, different styles of music. I'm always one for pushing out different styles, different genres, giving people different things to listen to. With that being said, you know, you're always going to have an opinion. You're always going to get people an opinion. It's not fair for me to say that it's an awful song and that it's not creative, because I'm sure it is. I don't get it. It's not for me in the slightest. I just think it's dull. You know, maybe you like it, maybe you think it's the best thing ever, in which case, great, it's good for you. You know, I hope you enjoy it, but for me, not at all. I'll never listen to it again. It will come as no surprise for that to be in the bottom category. That is not for me, so not a lot else to say about that one, really. We'll move on to the next song. Okay, so the third song this week, I think I'm going to do this week in 2 parts. So if this is the first part, this will be the last song of the first part. We'll do 3 today, 3 tomorrow. This song is by the 1975. It is called If You're Too Shy, Let Me Know. Now, the 1975 are a strange band for me. I've kind of always, not given them a chance necessarily, that's probably the wrong thing to say, but I've always, you know, been conscious of their music and listened to stuff for their music. I can't say as I've ever delved deeply into their back catalogue, but, you know, I know enough about them to know what they're about. You know, I think Matty Healy's got a great voice. I do think that they can fall into a strain of being quite a samey band, from what I've heard. Obviously, I've not, you know, by no means a big fan, but I know enough about them to formulate an opinion. Really like Robbers, think that's a good song. Chocolate's good. There's the other one as well, the slower one. Is There Somebody Who Can Watch You? That's a good tune. So yeah, open-minded about this one. If it is what I'm expecting it to be, then I'll probably like it a lot more than I've liked the others. So we'll take a listen. Again, like the intro, without having too much to say about it, obviously an intro is an intro, but it's a 1975 intro. You know, it's very similar to the intro on Robbers before the drums come in. You've got that reverb heavy, you know, the guitar in the background, real backing vocals in there. You expect it to just kind of lift and go off in a minute, which, you know, some 1975 songs it does. Others, like Robbers, it's held back and then it does it a bit later. So it's pretty cool though. And then, yeah, straight away, there's your signature 1975 guitars. You know, I don't know how you'd even describe them, but reverb heavy, real shimmery, you know, jangly almost. They're not jangly, but you know what I'm saying. It's typical 1975. I think a good thing about the 1975, you know, they're quite 80s really, but they've got that modern aspect to it. Obviously, they use the synths, they use the drum machines, but, you know, I haven't seen them live, but I've spoken to a lot of people that have seen them live. I've watched a lot of videos on them live. You know, they translate what they do on record really, really well live, and you know, I would assume this is no different. If I've got one little bugbear with it so far, the intro's a little bit long. You know, he hasn't started singing yet, and I'm like a minute and a half into the song. I'd assume there's a different version for radio, because radio aren't going to want to have that playing. But yeah, it's okay. Again, like, that's the first 4 lines. It's very 1975. I can't say it's anything different from what I've heard. It's exactly like I was expecting. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Matty Healy, he's got a very... I think it's quite a deliberate vocal delivery in that, you know, every word he says is very pronounced. It's very... I don't know how you would describe it, but it's cool. It's, you know, and it does exactly... There's only the 1975 really that do that, and then there's others that try and replicate them. So in that sense, it's cool. And again, he's got a great voice. I think the amount of reverb they have on the track and the amount of reverb they have on his voice really complements that as well. So yeah, you know, don't dislike this by any stretch. So this feels like the pre-chorus now. You know, you've got the guitars with a little bit of distortion coming in the background. You know, not a lot by any means. You know, the vocal melody's changing up. You can feel now like it's building, like I said previously. You know, sometimes it does later on in the song. This is obviously one of those occasions. Again, it's not very... It's, in regards to their sound, it's not very inventive. You know, it's what you would expect from a 1975 song. But again, I repeat, that's not that that's necessarily a bad thing. They've obviously got a formula. It works. If it works, don't change it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. I really, really like that. The trumpets and, you know, the brass section coming in the chorus. That's something I've not heard on a 1975 track before. Maybe I've just missed it, but that's not something I'm used to. It's not something I would have expected. Again, lyrical themes, you know, it's about girls, it's about sex, it's about all that sort of thing that the 1975 are renowned for. Again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think Matty Healy does it really well. I think his delivery on things like that is really good. By no means do I dislike it. I mean, I think it's a shame, you know, obviously it's a shame that festivals aren't going to be going ahead. Obviously, they've not said about Reading and Leeds yet this year, but I would assume that that's not going to be going ahead. Obviously, Download Festival's been cancelled, you know, Glastonbury cancelled. I would assume, you know, the 1975 are always a great festival band anyway. I think they headlined Reading and Leeds, was it last year, maybe the year before? This is, you know, it's written for that kind of atmosphere, you know. I imagine it'd sound massive, you know, festivals, arenas, all those places that they play. But again, it's the 1975 sound. It is what they do. They obviously do it well because they've got legions of fans all over that will support them no matter what they do. So, yeah, not a bad song by any stretch of the means. I certainly don't dislike it. I wouldn't say it's my favourite song of theirs. Not by a long shot, you know. It's probably, you know, towards the bottom end of my songs for them. But, you know, I've got a very sheltered knowledge. I probably could name you maybe 10 songs of theirs, including this one. So this one I'm going to rank as re-listenable. Like I say, hopefully you agree. If you don't, let me know why. We'll have a discussion about it. That is going to be the end of part 1 for this week. Hopefully this one is going to be going up on Monday. If you're watching this on Monday, part 2 will be up tomorrow. If you're watching this on Tuesday, part 2 will be up on Wednesday, so you get the gist. Tomorrow we've got 3 more songs. Can't remember who they are off the top of my head, but I think we've got some pretty cool stuff coming up. Yeah, Juice WRLD coming up tomorrow, and we've got, where are we? 220 Quid and Ava Max. So 3 artists I'm just nothing about, but we shall see what we think. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. Check back tomorrow for another episode. Thank you very much.